Hey, book lovers, I'm Ashley,
And I'm Kendall, and welcome to Bound by Fantasy.
a channel all about books and bookish things.
Today, we're going to be talking about A Court of Mist and Fury. We had a previous video where we did part one, so if you forgot to watch that, go back to it, subscribe, like it, and drop us a comment, and then come back here because we're going to start book two, which is the biggest part of this book, and then we're going to make a third video about part three. So keep an eye out for that one as well.
Yes.
Okay, so part one jumps into part two, and she's officially left Tamlin. She knows that it's not going to happen. She decides that she's full in, and she asks Reese to take her with her. So he's going on a mission. He's going somewhere. She says, "Take me with you." And she's afraid that he's not going to, like Tamlin didn't take her all those other times.
Right.
And he does, and he takes her to Polaris, obviously your shirt. And
Yes.
we finally see the city of Starlight. We see really what the Night Court means. It's not the Court of Nightmares. Like we see the good place. And
Yes.
how did you feel when like you finally saw Polaris or like red Polaris?
First off, I loved that he did like immediately, like there was no hesitation. Like he offered to take her with him just as long as she didn't like, share what she saw.
Right.
Which was a huge difference from Tamlin, right? Because he kept disappearing, not telling her where he was even or, any information. So I love that right away Reese was like, "Yes, you can come with me. You just can't tell anybody about what you're seeing," which is totally like valid because she was telling Tamlin all the things. So, so I love that. And then, yeah, when I like first when we see Valaris, I don't know, I was conflicted, right? So initially I was like, okay, this clicks things together. Like this makes sense. Like why I was conflicted about Reese, like why I was like, I like him, I don't like him, what's going on? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? So I was excited to see that no, he is actually like a good person and that it's just been a front this whole time and that, this is why and that he's been protecting the city. So that made me feel good, made me feel like validated of like why I like him and, feel like, all right, well, you're okay. He really is a good guy. Um, and it just sort of clicked things in place for me. But I can also understand, like, from her point of view, how she could be frustrated because, you know, could he have saved other parts of the world? Could he have helped other areas instead of just helping this one area? I mean, I don't think so. It doesn't sound like it because like Amarantha even like modeled the mountain right after the Court of Nightmares. So it's tough to say, but I feel like, he saved that little like slice of the world and that was like great. But the people just feel very like oblivious to what happened to everybody. So that's like I feel like I would have a hard time swallowing that a little bit too. How did you feel about it?
Same. So at first I was like, okay, like calm down. He saved the part, like the part that meant the most. But she goes through all these things with Tamlin. She goes through the type. She saves the water race by giving her jewelry away because she's really starting to care about the spring court. And
Hmm.
I get why she's so upset because she had a court safe, but then everyone else had to deal with everything else. And she also is like, again, the people have didn't have to experience anything else the rest of the Fey world had to. They were
Right.
trapped. The Spring Court had to wear masks on forever, and they didn't experience it. And she's thinking further ahead, what happens when or if Highburn finds out about Valaris? Are they going to come for these people that have known peace for so long? And now they're going to have to experience war in that aspect. So I get why she gets upset at him, and she's kind of valid in the reason. She gets why he saved it, but she can be upset for the other court to
Right.
get saved.
Right. Yeah, I think she's absolutely justified. But yeah, same thing initially. I was just like, all right, girl, chill out. Like he saved a whole bunch of people. Like And clearly like she starts to get to know that like he hates having to be that bad person, right? So she gets to know him more, and the more she realizes like that wasn't like that's not who he truly is, right? And that's not who he wants to be, but it's who he's had to be to protect his people.
Um, so now that she's accepted everything and she wants to be a part of this, she gets to meet the inner circle, right? So she meets Cassian, she meets Az, which I love Az, and she meets Moore and Amryn, and she really gets to see their dynamics and she gets to know their backgrounds, how they kind of went through a traumatic background and they all became really close and they used each other with that background. What are your first impressions of everyone? Like, who popped out as someone that you're probably going to like, obviously, further on? And who were you shocked or what did you notice?
Um, so first off, I just loved like how they all interacted and that they were just like this big happy family. Like, especially because of Reese's, persona outside of Valaris, that, it seemed like he was just very cold and like nobody could love or care about him or anything, right? And then you see like this whole family that's not necessarily his family, but it's his family who just love him. They all get along really well. Like he doesn't like, talk down to them. They all have important roles that are there. So I thought that was really great. I feel like Tamlin like really talks down to everyone, like even Lucian, and just really like puts Lucian in his place. And I think that's why like Lucian didn't stand up for Feyre, as much as he like maybe would have. But like I think that right away I noticed that like they would talk back to Reese, or like they would give him a hard time and joke around and stuff. And that just seemed like a very different dynamic. So that was great to see. More like right away, I loved her because I was like, hey, like she was just so funny. She's like, yeah, we're gonna be best friends, and that's how it's gonna be. And I loved that because I feel like she hasn't had anybody on her side or like anyone having her back. And so that was nice that like she was just like we're gonna be good friends, and she also had saved her already, right? So she had that like established relationship. But that was fun, and just seeing them like joke around and give each other a hard time was great. And then also that Cassian was like willing to train her
Yes.
like right away, basically. Like she was trying for months with Tamlin and Lucian, and Lucian like maybe could have trained her, but Tamlin was just so adamantly against it that like he wasn't allowed to either. And Castian was just like, yeah, absolutely, let's train you, right? So that really stood out to me too, of like just such a stark difference between the two. And that I'm like, all right, she could definitely like, I think maybe have this be her family or like grow to love them, especially because she really hasn't had a family. Her family was not great. And then, Tamlin was a hot mess. So yeah, so I really liked that. Who stood out to you right
Um,
away?
I'm a big fan of Shadow Daddy. So Az was like, "Oh, I like you already." Like, look me up. Um, so and he grows on you later on. So I'm gonna have to definitely recap that one. But it was nice, and I like just like you said how they interact. And like Ashley was like, "Let's train you," and Reese even like, "Let's train you with the powers." Where Tamlin was like, "Don't let anyone know you have their powers. They're going to come
Right.
after you." Instead of, "Let's teach you how to defend yourself in case they do," because if she's supposed to be Fae forever now, you really think
Mhm.
in all of these years she has to live, no one's gonna find out? Like it was just kind of unrealistic in that sense. Like he
Yeah,
should
that's
not
true.
like the other guys, where let's get a plan to defend yourself before you get found out, because they're gonna find out.
Right.
Amryn scared me. I was like, she sounds she scared
Yeah.
me a bit. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about this one. Um,
Yeah.
I mean the fact like
Especially initially.
and the fact that like Reese is like scared of her. I'm like,
Right.
boy. Obviously I loved more. It did set off a little flag in my head when he talks about how Moore is the only one with an official title, and she's who he sends in when like all else failed. And I'm like, so what does that mean she can do? So
Yeah,
it's like, ooh, okay, there's way more to her than they let on initially. So it's kind of like I'm excited to find out what happens with her.
yeah, absolutely.
So now that she meets everybody, they talk about King of Hybern. They want to make sure that he doesn't come in and destroy everything. And they think that he's going to resurrect Jurian. And
Hmm.
they decide to go to the prison to talk to the bone carver and see if they're right. So they go into the prison, and how were your reactions when they went to the bone prison? Because like obviously everyone's amped up. Amryn comes and meets Feyre and gives her an amulet to protect her while she's in there. And even Rhys, it's out of like his jurisdiction, kind of. So like it's in his territory, but like it's kind of like a place in all of itself. So how did you feel when they were
Right.
like going in there, and what happened when they actually met the bone carver?
Well, so first off, like I I felt like just I don't know, maybe it's just like anxiety from Tamlin, like just residual anxiety. But like Tamlin wouldn't let her do anything, you know what I mean? And like the fact that Rhys like knew she was the person who had to do it and didn't stop her, but like helped her prepare for it, like that was really great to see.
Yeah.
And that he didn't have her go by herself, right? Like she had to go and like take on Amarantha essentially alone until, other people helped, not Tamlin. Um, and Tamlin just kind of left her and said like, peace out, see you later. Um, you know, in the first one. So I I liked that Rhys was like, I'm going with you, and that Amarin was also like, here's this amulet that'll like help you, even though it literally meant nothing later on
Yes.
that we
There's just a gift from Reese.
yeah,
Reese knew it the whole time, but he doesn't
right.
like burn the bridges because he's like, if she thinks it's gonna protect her, I'm not gonna say anything.
Right. No, that was great. Yeah, so I think like that was really great to see that he was like, okay, we're gonna do this together. Like he just fully like just believed in her. And I think like she hasn't had anyone believe in her really. Like even her family, I think just expected her to like, care for them and find food and whatever, but I don't know that they had like a whole bunch of faith in her abilities or anything like that. So that was really great. And then as far as like the actual bone carver, I don't know why, but exactly what she described was exactly what I was picturing for the bone carver. I know that obviously he appears different to everyone. So, but I was like picturing like a child too. Which also made me think like that because she killed like the child in the third
Right.
trial, that might be where that's coming from. And that's why like that was her vision of him. What
Right.
did you feel like
I
you were
agree.
thinking when you saw this?
Yeah, like the loss of innocence, and that's why he appeared as like a young Fey male.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and I don't know, it creeped me out though too because there's this like little child, and he's like talking to her like a grown adult, not like a kid,
right.
and basically confirms her suspicions. The King of Hybern is going to use the cauldron, and he's going to resurrect Jurium. So they need to figure out how to stop all of this.
Hmm.
After they leave the prison, they make a plan, and they have to go to the bone carver. No, not the bone carver. We did the bone carver. They have to go to the Weaver cottage
Hmm.
for that. So they go to the Weaver cottage, and lo and behold, this is like a test to make sure she can sense certain objects, right? That
Right.
have the High Lord's, I don't know, Seth? I don't know, magic
Their
powers
presence,
of
yeah,
presence.
magic
There
in
we
them.
go.
Yeah.
Another word.
Like strong to like. Yep, yep.
And Reese just like, okay, you go. Like, I don't know about you, but I was like, are you kidding me? What are you
Well, he
doing
gave her
right
no
now?
direction whatsoever. I was like, no clue of what she's looking for, like nothing whatsoever. He just was like, this is go find, go forth, go have fun. This is super dangerous, and I'm not coming
Mhm.
with you this time. So that one was interesting, yeah. Whereas like the bone carver, he went with her. Um, granted, like, he said after, like, because she was mad that she's like, I was in trouble and you didn't help me. And he's like, you were fine. Like, I was, I was watching you. I was like keeping an eye out.
As he's laying on that tree branch, like, it's fine. You
You're
almost
fine.
died.
You're
Care.
good. That was, I don't know, it was very funny, but also like nice that he trusted her and believed in her enough to like be able to do it by herself. Like, again, like it was such a huge difference from what she's been experiencing with Tamlin
Right.
and in the spring court, where like no one thought she could do anything, right? She just was painting all day and doing nothing else with her life. So huge difference from that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting, like that the object she found like was something that he was just like, eventually we find out it didn't really mean too much. It was just something he's like wanted to get back, but it was really just to see if like she could sense him on that,
Right.
essentially, right? But it wasn't like crucial to the mission. Like she didn't have to find it as part of like the cauldron. Um, so it was really truly a test. And she gets mad and says, no more blind walking in. Like I
Right.
need to know what I'm walking into, which I appreciate.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah, what did you think about the Weaver?
Oh, she scared the poop out of me. Um, I really didn't know how it was all going to end up. Um,
Hmm.
like she found the ring, but I honestly thought like the chase out of the cottage and how she had to like crawl her way out of the chimney. I think that's how, yeah. Um,
Yeah,
I thought she was for sure gonna lose that stupid ring, and then it would just be gone and the whole thing would be over. And the
right,
fact that he's just like lounging there as she's like all messed up from trying to get out of there, and he's like, "You were fine."
right.
I was like,
He
"What are
was
what are
good.
you talking about?" I was like, she was not
Yeah,
fine, but
she was
I mean,
not. She was not fine.
it just
Well, and
really,
also like, what if, because that was the test, right? What if it didn't work? Like, what if she hadn't been able to sense it? Like, I
right,
mean, clearly, like he just knew and believed that that would work, but if not, she would have been like stuck in there,
right,
right? And
right,
it would have been, yeah, even
bad.
worse. So, yeah,
Would have been really bad.
yeah, especially with no direction as to like what was the object that she's trying to find either, right? Like, she's like, go sense an object somewhere in the house. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so then we get out of there. We find that so she can sense the object. So then they start making a plan. And they also talk about how they need to talk to the human queens.
Hmm.
She has to go back home. And obviously, she hasn't been there since she went back for Tamlin, right? So she hasn't, like, which I kind of thought was a little weird. Like, she didn't give her family a heads up, like, hey, I'm alive. You know, like, she just, like,
That's
survived
true.
this tragic, traumatic situation and she was just gonna live there forever and like peace out family. Um, so she obviously comes back and she's Faye. Um, how how do you feel she handled that situation? Like, did you think she handled it okay by trying to hide it at first, and then obviously Nesta knows because I feel like Nesta knows everything. But how did like
Yeah.
her family's reaction and even like the servant's reaction when she opened the door?
I feel like that, like, she knows so much that they don't know, right? Like, at that point, she has been living in the Fae world for a while now, and she knows that all the assumptions that they had about the Fae, like when she was growing up, aren't true. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like that maybe that was why she didn't go back to see her family for a little while too, because she was nervous like about that. Um, because I feel like that would have to be like really difficult. I mean, I think she handled it okay. I feel like maybe she should have just come clean right away, and just told them like what happened, like that. Look, this is what happened. The only reason I'm alive right now is because they helped me. Um, but also, I think she like did start, even like I want to say in the last book she gave them a warning of like iron doesn't do anything, right? But she didn't say like you don't have to be afraid of them.
Yeah,
Um, so I feel like she didn't help herself previous to this with other interactions. Because yeah, she just didn't. I mean, granted, there was a lot going on, before, but I feel like she just didn't really like explain like, no, they're actually like great fae out there. There's obviously bad fae, just like there are bad people in the world. But yeah, I feel like that had to be like a very tough interaction for her. I think she handled it okay, but I don't know if like clearly they're gonna notice, right? So it's like, why walk in trying to hide it? That seems silly.
Well,
Um,
especially when Cassian shows up. I mean, his wings are on display. Like, they're gonna.
right. They're gonna figure it out very quickly. So yeah, I mean, you might as well just come clean and say like what happened. So
Right.
yeah.
So obviously they come and Cassian tells Nesta all about like how Farah like did all these things for her. You need to be nicer to her, and they like bicker back and forth. Did you pick up on that? The like bickering? Because I was like, ooh, they're like bickering more than I thought. Like Nesta and Cassian should bicker.
Yes. Yeah. For sure. I'm like, is something gonna happen with them at some point?
Right? I was
So
like, ooh, okay. Like, I see you. I see what you did there. Like,
yeah.
very
Well,
flirting.
and they both have strong personalities, so like that was nice to see them like, that somebody could kind of stand up to Nesta too, because she's just got such a strong personality
Yeah,
as well. But I don't know. I liked that. I appreciated that.
yeah, I
That
agree.
was great.
So then they agree to help them. They're going to send a letter to the queens and they write out the letter and then they leave. And on their day off, Feyre convinces Rhysand to train in the woods, right, with her powers.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to maybe even try to winnow if she can.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're in there, the adder comes. Obviously scary. I don't like the adder, and I don't know if you looked
Right.
at the art for the adder yet.
No, I
Oh,
have not.
it's terrifying.
I
So
I might not purposely.
you don't want to. I was like, I'm out. Um, so the adder comes, and obviously he's that evil creature that like beat the crap out of her
Hmm.
and scared Tamlin and everything under the mountain. Like, just not a nice. He's not even a male. Like, he's just a creature.
Right.
Um, and then so Reese gets to her and binds the adder to the tree, and they find out that he was there to kidnap Feyre. So from the King of Hybern, like what did that set off in your head? So like it set off alarm bells. I'm like, why are they interested in her? Like it freaks me out.
Right. Yeah. I feel like they already know that she has powers, right? And that like they're trying to get her powers or something. Like something's going on where like they know more than they're supposed to. Um, Obviously, like I know what happens at the end, and now like you're making me like think about at this point, like, did Tamlin tell him something? I know we're like not there yet, but I'm like, I wonder if Tamlin like
All
had
right, how did
disclosed some
they know?
information. Right, exactly. Yeah,
And it kind of frustrates me, and this is where I guess I got a little frustrated with Reese because Reese knew that that was probably going to happen, and he didn't tell her. Like he used her as bait, and I was like, dude, that's like
right,
a full Tamlin move right there. You just
right.
Tamlin Feyre, like you used her and
Yep,
were honest with her. She probably would have played along if you knew. So yeah, it's obnoxious, but in
yeah,
a good sense, she ends up winnowing. I think that's how we say it, but I can't remember.
yes,
And so like that's a good thing. She like figures out kind of how to do that. So that's
right.
good.
Yeah. No, that's good. Although she can't replicate it again
Yeah,
for
yeah,
quite
she
a while, but she at least she knows she can do it, so that's good. At least figuring out she's able to, because not everyone can, right?
right.
That's like a skill that they potentially have. So yeah. Um, yeah. So no, again, like yeah, using her as bait, not so good though, right? But she
100%.
does give him a hard time, and she's like, no, we're not gonna do that again. Like, don't pull that again.
Right. So again, they're just writing letters to these queens. They're trying to get their help. And she gets to know the inner circle more. they go to Valeris, like they see that like the people on the street don't fear their High Lord. They like appreciate him, accept him, and kind of like treat him like a normal person.
Hmm.
That's just like a shock to her system after Tamlin, because I don't think Tim, I don't know. I'm gonna ask you this question. Did you get the vibe that Tamlin was like well loved in the spring court? Because I sure didn't.
No, no, I feel like he was kind of feared. Like, I don't know, like super feared, but like I think like not Reese feared in the Court of Nightmares, but like kind of an in between. But yeah, no, I feel like they were just sort of like following him because they felt threatened by him. Not that he had like actually maybe done a ton to them, but just they, yeah, didn't, have a good connection or like look up to him or feel like he was helping them in any way.
Right. And I feel like that's she like starts to really appreciate Reese at that point. Like she already is,
Yeah,
but she notices like if all these people in his court love him so much, maybe like he is lovable almost in a sense.
right.
Now Feyre and Reese head to Summer Court because they need that the first half of the book or the other half of the
Hmm.
and they go in there and they meet the Summer Court and she kind of recognizes the High Lord because she can like sense him. And in a way,
Right.
kind of see that he senses her back. What were your first impressions of him?
Um, I don't know. I feel like I was a little conflicted about him. I wasn't sure, like, is he gonna be helpful? Is he not gonna be helpful? Are they gonna be honest about what they're doing? Like, are they not? Like they were trying to deceive him, but he seemed like a nice guy, and she
Mm-hmm.
was saying, like, just tell him what we're here for, like he might just give it to us. Especially if they had explained what had happened. So like I do wonder if they had just explained why they were there, if he would have given it to them. I don't know because of how like terribly he reacted, but I mean if someone's stealing from you, you're not going to react well, right? So I don't know. But also like when they sort of give a hint as to where they think it is, his reaction is like it makes me think maybe he wouldn't have. But I mean, he seems like a nice guy for the most part. And that like they could have like a good relationship with him. So I don't know. I just feel like it was like trending in a good direction, and then I feel like they burned a bad bridge while they were there.
So I did too. I was like, come on, you like he sounds like a nice guy. And I really honestly truly think if they had laid all the cards out on the table, I
Hmm.
think he would have. I think he would have helped him. And I think he got so aggressive and so upset about it because they did him dirty. Like they
Right.
come in, she flirts with him. She kind of like, let's be honest, she leads him on. And
Yeah.
then they start asking questions. He gets a little sketched out and she has to like mind swipe him. And
Right.
I just feel bad for him because I think he's like a good guy and I think that he would want to help them. And in a sense, it just drives me nuts that they didn't trust him enough to even try. You know,
Right.
like
Agreed.
didn't try. It bothers.
Yeah.
Like you should have just tried to be okay. So they don't ask the queen. They don't ask the summer court for help. They take it and they ask the queens for help because they can't take it. Like Az can't get in there. He can't figure how to break into the queens. And it's just like you said, it seems unfair that
Right.
they ask one and they don't ask the other. And I get that Reese had his reasons, but it still was sketchy. But even after they do all of this and they ask and they like prove and they tell their stories, the queens are like, no, we're not giving you our book. It's staying where it is until you can give us bigger proof that you're a good person. And I completely disagreed with Reese. This was a big, why are we doing this move? I don't know how you felt
Yes.
when he shows them Valaris, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, even
Yes.
though it's just
Yeah.
in like the little Orby thingy, I'm like, why are we doing this? I like, how did you?
Right. Yeah, no, when he said he was going to do that, I was like, well, first off, well, because he doesn't show them right there. Like he goes and they go to the Court of Nightmares and they have to get the orb thing.
Correct.
Um, but
Agree.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, why? I don't know. Yeah, why? I don't know. First off, I was like, please don't actually take them there. Like they're going to destroy it or they're going to show it to everybody else. But I feel like maybe there could have been like a way to show it, but not have them know where it was or something, or show, or even just like, honestly, I feel like he didn't need further proof than Feyre. Like the fact that he saved Feyre, the fact that he like made the deal to save her life, that she could have just showed her tattoo, like I feel like there was a million other things he could have done except show Volaris. So the fact that he was like, yeah, I'll just show you that, like, and everybody disagreed with him, right? Like nobody felt good about that decision. Um, yeah,
Right.
and then also it made Mor have to deal with her dad
Mhm.
too, which was terrible as well. So
Yeah. So now that
yeah,
you
that
brought up that the fact that they had to go to the court of nightmares for the orb, they had to like play roles as they were doing this. How did you feel about her like I don't know, being like his little plaything? Like what was your feelings? Because I was like, ooh, this is like spicy. But then in the same sense,
yeah,
like she's not your plaything, back off. Like,
yeah,
don't
yeah,
like that court of nightmares. She's more than that.
right. I was glad that like it was explained that she had to play a role and she agreed to play that role and she knew what she was walking into this time
Yeah.
versus like, and I think that they explained more what happened in the first book with what was going on and why Reese was like having her drink that, wine every night and like lose her memories essentially and like have to like dance for him then, right? So I feel like we got a little bit more of insight into like why that happened in the first place. And then it was sort of, it made sense, but also like didn't
Right.
completely make sense, I guess, because it was like, who else has seen her since she's been going there,
Right.
like no one has seen her out in public. So like, did she really have to act like that? I mean, I guess it was just a huge distraction,
It,
right? But
that was
uh
successful, but it still, I was like, I mean, I like the spice, but my girlfriend
yeah,
would be like, I'm your queen. Like that's how I
right,
felt. I was like, she should put them all in their place. She doesn't need to be his queen, his plaything. Like
right,
she
exactly.
his equal. She's also a fae. She has all the high lord powers. And
Yeah.
like, but it is what it is.
I did appreciate that when she got insulted that Reese like stood up for her though.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
even though like that was the role she was playing, that he immediately reacted and like was like, no, you're gonna apologize. So I appreciated that because I was like, okay, even though he was making her play that role, that's still, I think it triggered him for two reasons. One, because it triggered him because he knew that's not the real role that she's playing, right? But also because of him, because of his experience of being Amarantha's whore, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that it triggered him for two different reasons. And I was glad to see that he stood up for her. I think that was really great.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so we're back from the Court of Nightmares, and Reese kind of like pulls Farah aside and says, hey, I want to apologize. Like, this is the side that I didn't want you to see. And she doesn't love it because it kind of like triggers her a little bit, but she understands it. And they're able to, I feel like, have a good conversation about it. Do you think that like she understands why he was like that there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like she partly knew what she was walking into, but she had never actually seen him like that in his own
Mhm.
court so much. So I do think like it was a bit of a shock, like how she was treating Moore's father and talking to him. And it reminded her also of like how he made Tamlin beg and that like, and he kind of admits like that wasn't just because he was trying to you know, put on this front, right? Like he was sincerely like upset with Tamlin.
Right.
So some of it is like right, some of it is like it's true, but it's not. So like he's definitely like blowing it out of proportion in the Court
Yes.
of Nightmares. So yeah, I mean, I think they did handle it like he handled it pretty well. But I think like she's trying to figure out like who he is in reality, and I think she's getting like her eyes opened wide, but also it kind
Mhm.
of opened up her eyes to like some other situations that have happened in the past too.
Right. So then one of my favorite like parts in part two happens, and that's Starfall. So
Hmm.
Starfall is like this beautiful thing that happens, and Reese has been deprived of it, so he's really excited to see it. And basically, it's literally like the stars fall, and
Right.
she gets dressed up, and I feel like this, she kind of like really realizes how she's feeling for him, and she's
Yeah.
able to laugh at the event, and that's like that big part, right? Like she's really being healed at that point. She puts on the dress and she's realizing like she's filled out, she's happier, and the fact that she's able to laugh when the star hits both of them basically. Um,
Right.
it's just a great scene. I mean, I love that scene. It's definitely one of those ones I would want to like play out. Like if I ever went to like a book ball, I would
Oh
definitely
yeah.
love to be in that scene. How did the scene make you feel? Like, what were your thoughts when like she kind of like sees herself being okay?
It was such a great moment. I completely agree with you. Like it was so nice to see that after all of this, that like she is healing, right? And that she also like sees herself as like being a part of their family too.
Hmm.
Like she's laughing like not only with Reese and I think falling for Reese at that point and like realizes it, but also she's watching everyone else dance, right? She's watching everyone just have fun and also something I really like too is like she could have just like stayed with Reese by herself, but she knew that like he hadn't been with his family in so long, and she's like, no, let's go down and dance with them. And I
Yes.
thought that was great.
Hmm.
Like that was so nice. I'm like, she could have totally just, I don't know, like Tamlin and her, I feel like just kept sneaking off or whatever and doing their own thing. And it felt like she really cares about him like even more so. Like I think she was starting to feel for him, but I think like she cares about him as a friend and she's starting to feel more than that for him
Right.
too. So that was so nice to see that like she's like, no, let's all go celebrate together. I don't want to just be with you. Because that could have just been a romantic moment,
Hmm.
but it turned into like a nice family friend moment that I loved that. They had their little romantic moment and then they kind of came
Right.
back after that, which was awesome.
And we do have to admit, at that point, still, she's still traumatized by Tamlin.
Yes.
She feels the way she feels for Reese, but then, like, in the back of her head, she's thinking she shouldn't, right?
Right. She
Because
feels very guilty. Yeah.
she's still supposed to love Tamlin, like, even through all this stuff. And she also feels like she shouldn't just be, like, with Reese. All that stuff just went
Right.
down with Tamlin. We need to, like, not do that.
Well, and she was engaged too, right? It's not like she was just casually seeing him. They were literally walking down the aisle. And so I think she's like, feeling guilty about that of like it hasn't been that much time
Right.
and like is this okay, right? And I don't blame her, right? That would be really hard to get over.
Hmm.
So she's definitely very conflicted. I think she's like falling for him, but she feels so guilty about falling for him too.
I
She
agree.
doesn't like let herself fully fall yet at that point.
Correct. Correct.
Hmm.
So another part that sticks in my brain is after Starfall, they go to the Iranian war camp. And this is when we learn kind of like all the bad things that are happening there, like that females aren't allowed to be fighters. And that's something that Reese and Cashin are both fighting for.
Hmm.
And surprise, surprise, they obviously weren't doing that when Reese wasn't there. And
Right.
they the fact that they like clip the female's wings
Oh, it's so
so
awful.
they can't fly. Oh, that like I don't know about you, but that killed me. as like
Yeah.
a female. I was like, oh my gosh. And their families doing this to their kids. It's
Right.
not like they're like kidnapped and it's done to them. Like their families do it. And
Right.
it just,
Yeah.
oh, it breaks. It breaks. Like, ah, I get upset. Like it's just so sad. Um,
Yeah. No, that
I,
was awful. And like hearing about Reese's mom in particular too was like I feel like that
yes.
really hit home as well of yeah, it just I'm glad that she was still able to fly, but just like how much it meant to her that like his dad had saved her and
Right.
like she was still able to keep her wings. Like that, I don't know, was just great to see as well.
Right. And it's also kind of like another situation with Valaris. Like his mom saved her wings, so she got to experience things with Reese that most females don't. But
Right.
there are still so many that didn't, and it's kind of like it sucks because she
Yeah.
got to, but everyone else basically didn't get to.
Right.
So then they go into the woods to practice her abilities.
Hmm.
And while they're there, dun to the nun, Lucian comes. And he has sentinels from the spring court, right?
Hmm.
So she immediately like is tense because it's Lucian. She doesn't want Lucian to be there. He and this part, Reese isn't by her at this point.
Right.
And he says like they've been looking for her, they're trying to get her back. And she's like, well, didn't Tamlin get my letter? Like the letter that she's not coming back?
Right.
And like he basically ignored the letter. Like Tamlin doesn't care. He just thought it was like a plot. Um, I guess to me that speaks volumes about Tamlin's character. That even a letter written by Feyre, he didn't listen to her. And how was your aspect of when like Lucian's like, I'm gonna come rescue you?
You know, on one hand, like it's frustrating and I totally see what you're saying. And I would say like that's my initial reaction. It's funny because now we're talking about it, I'm like thinking differently about it. Um, but no, like initially I was like, oh man. And like I like Lucian and I felt bad for him because it was like he was trying to do what Tamlin was asking him to do. Like he thinks that Feyre's in danger. Like
Mhm.
from his perspective, he thinks that something's going on and she's being like held captive or something. Um, and I think honestly, I'm like, I don't know that a letter was the best way to like break it off with your fiance who trapped you in
I
his
do
court.
agree.
Like, I'm like that. I like playing devil's advocate a little bit. Like, I feel like if I was Tamlin, I don't know if I would trust that letter, right?
Right.
Like, and also because did he know she could read now and write?
True.
Right? Because she couldn't
Right.
before. So, like, I don't know. From Tamlin, I'm just trying to like play devil's advocate a little bit, but
Right.
like from Tamlin's perspective, right? Like, does he know that she can read and write? Because last he knew she couldn't. Does he know that like she's safe? Not really. So he
Right.
might think like I'm trying to save you, and like Lucian thinks he's trying to save her, and like they haven't seen her since that happened, right? So yeah, I mean, I was frustrated and like I feel like Lucian like could have been worse. Like he could
Yes.
have
Oh yeah.
like he could have really just been very aggressive and tried to like just take her regardless and stuff. And like I feel like he was still just like trying to convince her to go with him. Whereas Tamlin, I feel like would have just grabbed her and
Right. Well,
walked
that's
away.
what I always wonder about that scene because to me, what I almost think Lucian might have grabbed her, but she finally accepted Tamlin's power and shifted because he can shift
Right.
like all these various beings. And she shifted and pulled out her wings and really
Yeah.
solidified, like, I am not coming back. I'm no longer someone to mess with. If you're going to take me, it's going to be a fight. And I think that's where Lucian like steps back, like, oh, it's going to be a lot worse than I thought. And then, of
Right.
course, at that point, too, Reese shows up and was like, yeah, this isn't happening. Just walk away. And he does, but like I feel like it got to a point almost where she had to be so aggressive with Lucian, and it bothers me because again, he's supposed to be her friend. And she had
Yes,
to get to the point where like I'm busting out my wings and we're not doing this. And I was like, come on, like listen to what she's saying. I get you might think that Reese like got into her brain, but at some point what she's saying has to make sense to you, right?
right. Well, and you know what though? Like I think it maybe did to Lucian. And like maybe he did go back and try to tell Tamlin that,
Right.
but Tamlin didn't listen.
I would
So
love to know his side. Like what happens
yeah,
when he goes back and like did he really fight for her when it was closed doors that we didn't get to see? So I would love if
right,
we were ever able to see that.
right. Well, or did they think that he was somehow controlling her mind because he can clearly do that too, right?
Right.
So, and that's
Right.
literally what she pretends later on. So yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I just have such a soft spot for Lucian. I like want to
Oh,
think
me
the
too,
best of him.
girl.
So I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I just feel like from his perspective, he wasn't seeing a lot of what was going on. He hadn't seen anything with Reese. Like the only thing he's seen from Reese is terrible things.
Right.
So, if that's all you're seeing, you're assuming that she needs to be saved. I get she's telling you, no, I don't, but like, is she in her right mind? Like, you
Right.
might not be thinking so. So, yeah, that was a tough moment, I feel like trying to, I don't know, I'm like, Feyre, you really, a letter is just not the best way to break up with someone that you're engaged to marry and that locked you in a house and stuff. Just not the best way to handle that. So I feel like she should have gone and talked to him, really, is like what should have
Right.
happened.
But I
Could she
don't
have gotten
know.
back out? I don't know.
But I
But
agree with her hesitation of going back or even
yeah,
having a conversation because would he have listened? You know,
right.
Tamlin had gotten to a point where he wasn't listening to her at all. And that's why
Yeah,
she ended up getting locked in the house. So I feel like I don't know if he would have listened.
right.
He needs some therapy. We both agree on that.
Yes, he sure does.
But the cool thing is that this led to like a little bit more spice with Reese and Feyre because like he touches her wings and she like now knows like okay, that's sensitive. And
Yeah.
because that Reese is being, I guess, tracked with his magic, they end up having to spend the night in the tavern. And of course, I mean, our romantic tropes, the one bedroom.
Yeah.
We knew it was coming, like, oh, the inn only has one room left, and it's got one bed. How convenient is that?
Right.
Um,
So, and maybe like this is something I just missed, but like Reese, like they can control having their wings out or not having them out, right?
he can because he is half.
Okay.
Um, but the
Because
other ones,
like,
they're out all the time, no matter what.
okay, okay, that makes sense. So, but
Hers
like
can
in
because
that
she shape
room,
shifts. She shape shifts into them.
that makes sense. In
She
the
doesn't
room
actually
though,
have
like
them.
he kept saying like they were like there's no room because of his wings and I'm like just put them away. Like put the wings away. Like the whole time I'm like what are we doing here? Like I'm like picturing this tiny little like cubicle that they're in and I'm like if you can put them away, like I know like probably doesn't want to, right? Like when he doesn't
Right,
have
yeah,
to,
because
but
he hints on that a little bit because to him it's really a symbol of his mother. And
hmm
like he feels like he's hiding part of himself when he has to put his wings away. Obviously, when they have the confrontation with Lucian, his wings are away because he doesn't want everyone knowing that he has wings and that he is like a certain type of fae. But
right,
when he's with like his as home and the people he cares about, he doesn't mind having them out.
right. Well,
Um,
see, but that's the thing. I'm just like, I get it, but when you're in a tiny little cramped room,
right,
like,
right. How
it's
did
like,
you
I don't know,
take
when you're
it,
sitting
the
next to
spice
someone,
scene?
I was
What'd
just
you
thinking when I'm
think?
sitting next to someone in a car and they're like spread fully out and you're like, there's four people in the car. Like, you don't need your legs completely open and your arms out. Like, just pull it in a little bit.
I know, I feel like I need a visual of like how did his wings fit on the
Yeah, I was trying to
bed?
picture it, and I'm like, it just didn't seem to be like working very well.
I know.
Um, no, well, so it's funny because like my husband's been asking me like, "Oh yeah, you just love all these spicy books and everything." I'm like, honestly, there hasn't been any spice in this book so far.
That
And
is
then I was like,
true.
oh, okay, all right, there it is. I'm like, all right,
And
here
there
we
it
are.
goes.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny because I actually told him that too. I was like, all right, I changed my mind. This is the spicy book. So it was funny.
And
Um,
I like, it's crazy that like they get to that point and he's like, we're not going any farther because he wants like
yes.
to like make it mean more. And that's like, oh, yay.
Yeah. No, that was great. Well, and like I don't know, now I'm like, could he have told her more at that
Right?
point? Like that would have been a good
Right.
moment to tell her.
I know. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Um,
But no, I mean, I think that was like sweet though that he was like, I don't just want, fun. Like I want, a meaningful, lasting relationship. Um, and that was nice to see. And I think a lot of times that's not the case, even in like romantic books that we read.
right.
So it was nice to see that.
hmm so now they leave the tavern, right? And they are flying back, and he starts telling her, we're assuming we know what she's gonna about to tell her, and all of a sudden he gets hit by multiple ash arrows. And
Mhm.
we know this probably happened. He probably got tracked because he had to winnow to her when Lucian arrived, right? So he gets hit by these multiple arrows. They basically like kind of crash land, and she has to like track to find out where he is. So you see the old Feyre come out again a little bit and like using her abilities and finding where he is. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed her kind of falling back into what she knew and using that in her
Right.
life.
Yeah, using her hunting skills that like I feel like they just sort of disappeared for a while there, so I did really
Yes.
like that. Yeah, and I feel like, even from the first book, like nobody taught her how to do any of the things that she did under the mountain, right? Like so yeah, she's got these new powers, but it's not like she was completely powerless before either. So that was really nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's weird that their little bit of a spicy scene is realistically why Reese survives because she can't, they hide his scent, but she smells herself. And I was like, okay, this is kind of awkward.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
her scent was on Reese, so she gets to that split, she remembers like she smells herself and like follows and she finds him, right?
Yes.
And he's like strung up. And I always thought that was interesting that they're like she manages to get him and goes out, but there wasn't like he wasn't super protected, which I thought was interesting. I don't know how
Yeah.
you feel about that. Like they find this big bad high lord and he's like,
They disappear? Yeah.
right.
Like
I
they
feel
just
like
leave
there
him
should be
there?
like 50 soldiers around him protecting
Right.
him and getting him back to where they want him.
No, I thought that was super odd as well. I'm like, she can just walk right in and grab him. Like, I don't know, that seemed really weird. I mean,
Yes.
maybe they just thought like he was so hurt that he wouldn't be able to do anything anyway, which like he would have died
Right.
had she not
Right.
saved him. So, I mean, maybe that's why, but like, what was the plan? Just leave him there?
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Right. What was the plan? Were they going to take him back? Because we assumed that they were going to take him back, and I think it might have been hinted at that. But she just gets in there, she gets him out, and then the next part is like her getting the arrows out and trying to like distract him and tells him what's the story about the dresser and how she painted the dresser and the different levels of the dresser, right?
Hmm.
Elaine's was the flowers, Nesta's was fire, and then hers were the stars. And
Right.
but even after all of that, we notice that he's not healing.
Right. And he should be.
Oh, she's noticing he's not healing. we're in trouble because at this point, she's taking the arrows out. He's still not getting better. They realize that there's something worse, that he needs to heal him somehow. So she does what she did before, and she goes out and she tries to find the Suriel because she said if anyone knows how to save him, it's going to be the Suriel.
Mm-hmm.
I know I talked a little bit about this to you about like I thought it was weird, but what did you think when she like captures him and you can kind of like talk about that whole situation?
I it I don't know. I feel like it was such a big thing the first time, and she just caught him like so quickly the second time, like immediately. And so, I mean, and I'm like, they happened to be right there. Like they
Right,
just happened to be there.
right,
It just seemed very odd. Like they were just right where they needed to be. I don't know. What did you think about that? Because I was like, this seems very lucky. Like we're
right.
getting
Like
lucky.
I don't get it. I didn't understand how he was just like right there, like there, and these woods, even though he was in the spring court in the first place. Like, how is he now all of a sudden in this other place? So I thought
Right.
that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thought that was super interesting. Um, yeah, and so then she finds out that like her blood can heal him, right?
Yep.
And I can't remember, does the Suriel tell her?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes. So,
Yeah,
yep. So you're right. Like he drops the biggest bomb that they're mates. Her blood and some little, I don't know, weed flower thing is going to save her. And he like chuckles. You think like your blood's going to save your mate. And she's like, what? Like,
right.
what do you mean, mate? And she goes back and she heals him and like she's like, you knew the whole time. And he did. And I'm like, what is going on? Why did
Right.
he tell her? And I
Yeah.
remember you texting me, they're like, what? They're mates?
Yeah. I'm like, what is going on right now? Well, so and also you had told me not to read further because we were going to record, and I was like, no, I need to finish this book at this point.
That's out the window. We're
That went
recording.
out the window. Yeah, so I tried, folks. I tried not to read it. It didn't work. I waited for like 2 days and then I was like, nope, gotta do it.
Hey,
So
I don't blame you. You probably waited longer than I would have. I would have been like, yeah, I'm continuing right now.
gotta
So,
continue right now. Yeah. No, because that was a huge like bomb that was dropped, right? And then also that he did know.
mhm.
And so then she like basically brings him back, dumps him off, and is just like, see you later, and
Right.
asks Moore to just take her away.
Yes, and Moore
Um,
brings her to the cabin.
hmm
And
And then
then,
that's where like part two ends,
yes,
essentially. Yeah,
yes, kind of drops her off and gives her like the space that she needs.
right. Which I thought was like really great because Moore also knew, and
Hmm.
like she knew that Moore knew, but she was just like, I need to get out of here. And I'm glad that Moore took her to like a safe space where she could just go like
Yes,
deal with her feelings. Like I think that was great, like a
yes,
great way to handle that for sure. And like I'm glad she still saved him. But
yes.
I don't know, there's a slight risk that she wasn't going to for a
I
hot
was
minute
thinking the
there.
same thing. I'm like, oh, he's gonna die.
Yeah, I'm like, she's just gonna let him go. That's gonna be the end of it. So, but yeah, she did save him, so I was glad about that. But I was really glad that Moore was just like, I'm gonna let you like go deal with your feelings, and then yeah, we'll see what happens from there. And that Moore didn't tell him too. Like
Yes.
that was nice. So she just kept that privacy. I think that also was like a moment where like Moore just stood out as like a good friend.
Hmm.
Also, like even though Moore knew it wasn't her place to tell her,
Right,
right? Like
right.
that
And
was
she
not
was
her place.
respectful enough to not. Yep.
Yeah. So I appreciated that and that she was just like, I understand you're probably mad at all of us. And I think Feyre also knew like it's not your fault, like it's Reese's fault. You should have said something.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I mean, on the other hand, though, it's like she was engaged to Tamlin. She was in love with Tamlin. Like, what are you gonna do? You know?
Right.
But once she's like there for a while, it's like at some point, he needs to tell her. And I
Right.
think he definitely could have told her sooner. And
Hmm.
well, he didn't tell her at all, right? So it's like
Right.
he should
Right.
have told her.
And then,
But
and we all wonder, like, was he going to tell her before they got attacked? Because it kind of like seems
yeah,
like it. But
yeah,
then, well, I guess we'll never know because he should have just told her, like,
yeah.
Starfall. That would have been the
That
perfect.
would have been a perfect time. Yeah.
She's laughing again. She's herself again. Tell her.
Right. Well, and especially all the guilt she was giving herself over Tamlin too, and all of the, just turmoil she was going through internally
Right.
about feeling for both of them. And like,
Hmm.
that would have helped her. And I'm sure like he felt that as well,
Yes.
through their bond. And so yeah, I mean, if he knew she was kind of struggling with it, like that was a little bit frustrating. But I think he also like wanted her to maybe like work out her feelings with Tamlin and like really decide she was done with him. I get that. I mean, it's like it'd be hard to be like, yeah, we're just meant to be together if she doesn't like you at all, right? Or like if she is still in love with someone else. But yeah, at some point it should have been sooner and he should have been the one to tell her. That shouldn't have been how she found out.
Oh, I agree. And I
Yeah,
love that, like, I feel like the cereal was just like, here's some tea. I'm gonna just throw it in your lap. And I was like, yes. I was like,
right?
I'm for you. I need to get like a cereal tea t-shirt because that's the best.
Right. Okay, so now that we know the cereal dropped some tea, we're gonna pick this back up with part three. So if you haven't watched part one, I don't know what you've been doing. Might as well go back and watch that. But this was part two of A Court of Mist and Fury. We're gonna do part three soon.
Yep. So watch out for that video. But first, before you leave, if you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and join our community, fellow bookworms. Drop us a comment. We'll respond.
Yes, because here at Bound by Fantasy, the adventure never ends. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.